scares and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for Political Correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is Political Correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
Hi, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
And we're hosting a show right here on GB News, 9:30am till 12pm, every single weekday, called To The Point.
We're going to be talking about all the big issues that matter to you at home in Britain.
Absolutely, whether it's holding politicians to account, discussing what's taking place in the Channel, banging on about law and order, we're not afraid to do the absolute lot of it.
Yes, and if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we'll be saying it.
Make sure you're here 9:30am till 12pm, every single weekday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
That's what you did. Good morning, hello. It's Thursday, the 4th of November. These are the stories that matter to you and to us on the Great British Breakfast with Simon McCoy and Kirsty Gallagher.
Good morning to you at 6 o'clock. Sleazy does it. Prime Minister Boris Johnson is facing a backlash after delaying the suspension of Tory MP Owen Paterson, who broke lobbying rules. Opposition MPs and some in his own party say it's one rule for them and one for us. Let us know what you think. GB Views at gbnews.uk or tweet us at GBNews.
Meanwhile, NHS staff won't be forced to have a mandatory jab this winter. That's despite fears of a spike in cases. But the public is being offered boosters a month earlier.
Also, it's simply not cricket. Former England batter Gary Ballance admits using a racial slur against his ex-Yorkshire teammate Azim Rafiq as the fallout continues with high-profile sponsors cutting ties with the Yorkshire County Club.
And good news in the fight against cervical cancer. A new study finds that the HPV vaccines cutting cases of cancer of the cervix by nearly 90%. That's a success rate that's been described as historic.
Plus, the annual Christmas ding-dong between the big stores. As John Lewis releases its Christmas TV ad, it features an alien. We'll look at the competition. M&S is relying on a pig idea.
We're going to show you that new advert as well, which I'm very excited about. The John Lewis.
She's got a Christmas outfit on specially.
I love Christmas. I have indeed. Actually, I haven't, but well-timed. Let's start with a look at some of the today's front pages, though. Prime Minister Boris Johnson's been accused of wallowing in sleaze by changing Parliament's anti-corruption rules to save Conservative MP Owen Paterson from being suspended. That's reported in the Metro today.
The Daily Telegraph writes that under plans being considered by ministers, NHS staff will not be forced to have the COVID vaccine this winter.
Boris Johnson protecting MP Owen Paterson, who was found to have repeatedly breached lobbying rules, from being suspended. It also makes the front page of The Guardian today.
The Eye also leads with the news that Prime Minister Boris Johnson ripped up anti-corruption rules to save Tory MP Owen Paterson from being suspended.
Now, a completely different story. And The Sun, Countdown host Anne Robinson had her co-star Rachel Riley's microphone muted as part of a toxic feud, they're saying.
Sounds like a good idea. Now, Prime Minister Boris Johnson is facing a backlash after blocking the suspension of Tory MP Owen Paterson, who broke lobbying rules. That's in the Daily Mail.
England's Deputy Chief Medical Officer, Professor Jonathan Van Tam, has warned that too many people wrongly believe that the COVID-19 pandemic is over, adding booster jabs and masks will help save Christmas. They write in the Daily Express there.
Boris Johnson has been accused of a colossal misjudgment after 51 Tory MPs rebelled over his decision to block the suspension of senior MP Owen Paterson, says The Times.
Boris Johnson flew back from the COP26 climate summit on a private jet for dinner with a friend, the Daily Mirror reveals today.
The Yorkshire Post runs with cricket club sponsors exit in racism round. That story we mentioned. Yorkshire County Cricket Club and sponsors including Yorkshire Tea have pulled back on their support for the club as the row deepens over its reaction to racist remarks made towards Azim Rafiq. We'll have more on this story later in the programme, talking to Monty Panesar.
And The Independent writes that a number of senior Conservatives have disowned Boris Johnson's attempt to neuter Parliament's sleaze watchdog in a move that's been branded a shocking blow to democracy in the UK.
Finally, astronauts returning to Earth have been warned not to go to the toilet after an issue on their rocket. Reports.
Only in the Daily Star.
Houston, we have a problem. Let's go. No, we like that.
Terrible.
Well,
right
could have
then.
been worse.
Sorry?
Could have been, but no, move on.
Well, Conservative Owen Paterson's avoided a 30-day Commons suspension after an 11th-hour intervention by senior Tory MPs.
Mr Patterson was found by a standards watchdog to have misused his ministerial position to benefit two companies he worked for and was paid a lot of money by as well. Some senior Tory MPs argued that the probe into his conduct had been unfair and instead voted to overhaul the standards system. However, the vote was met with cries of shame from the opposition.
The ayes to the right, 250. The noes to the left, 232.
Actually in the studio, which is brilliant. Business commentator, co-founder.
I missed the memo on the Christmas outfits this morning.
Do you know what? We saw each other out there and I went, oh, and we were both like, oh my goodness, we've got
to wait this hour of the morning, we're going to be awake.
Exactly.
My eyes do that, it's fine. Now, let's just start.
We're very disappointed with this, yes.
Let's just start. Owen Paterson. It's difficult not to see it without thinking of sleaze. Is that your sense of this?
It does. I mean, none of us really understand what the rules are, but do they not think how this plays out? What does it look like? And the answer is it looks like a sort of sleaze type thing. So even if you did want to change the rules, there are other ways of going about this, rather than this sort of vote which has brought it up, and you even had some of your own party members rebelling against it. This is not the time to do that sort of thing. Well, much better if the chap's done something wrong, there's a process to actually go through that process, and if you wish to have a reform or something, go through it later.
I mean, the fact is, and the facts are, he was found to have broken lobbying rules, and egregiously was the word that was used. He was paid more than £100,000 by these two companies. It's cash for access in anybody's language. And rather than face the music, they've changed the script.
Yes, I mean, it feels like brown envelopes all over again. I'm waiting for a duck house to appear quite soon. All of that sort of issues. But it's, the story should really sort of be playing out here. What's the best way to try and run Parliament? Do you want people receiving sponsored payments or not? If not, if you do, how are you going to arrange it? Frankly, actually, I'd rather have our MPs paid more so you get better quality people in there. And that way, actually, there's no attraction to do anything else. Fascinating. Some of my family connections. The Singapore MPs and ministers are paid a huge amount. Why? Because that way there's very little reason for them to be going out and getting involved in other issues.
Yeah. Should we move on? Yep. Let's move on. Lots to talk about. The fishing touch upon this because the British fishing trawler seized by France, the French authorities, is on its way home. Is this a sign that this fishing row is over? What do you think?
Yes, a big teacup to have a storm in.
Yes.
But there are all sorts of other elements to this. Is this actually punishing Britain for Brexit? Because remember, the EU's got a slight problem at the moment. Actually, what you're finding, and it's something I've been writing about recently, is there is another country, and it's called Brussels. And actually, what you're finding is there's a Visegrad group, a group of nations in the Eastern EU, which is basically Poland, Slovakia, Czech Republic, and Hungary, who are basically saying, we were not run by Moscow for 50 years to have it replaced by Brussels. So what they're trying to do is actually try and make sure that actually you're better off in this group. If you leave, you may well get punished, or life will be. They all want to make sure it's seen to be a success in leaving. So they need to bind them all in.
It's been a turbulent few days, hasn't it, for trawlermen? But the one thing that has come through is that they were let down during the discussions by Boris Johnson, by the Brexit team.
Yes, and it's very sad that actually, of course, the fishing industry is a tinier part of our economy. It's very emotional, though. Everyone loves the fishermen and all the things they do, and it's a really tough, dreadful business. But in terms of the economy, it's not that important. But there was supposed to be a deal laid out to protect all of this, and we don't know all the details of it, but it looks as though they were thoroughly sort of let down with it. And remember, this is supposed to be one of the key things: protect our fishermen. Protect, really?
Right, let's move on. Migrants, again, now another death in the Channel. The numbers are soaring of people trying to get across. And there's this sense of helplessness as far as the public are concerned, because no one seems to be tackling this.
No, and it is, and of course now it's particularly difficult and dangerous now because you're heading towards the season of storms, and so presumably the numbers will be less coming across because physically you can't get those rubber dinghies across the channel. But no one's fixing the underlying issue. And the underlying issue is how do you actually organise, proper immigration, allowable immigration. And what you should be doing is saying, if you wish to immigrate to this country, then actually don't encourage people to go to the local embassies, the local consulates. Apply through there. We want people to come to this country, but there is a process of doing it.
Well, there's a criminal element that everybody says, this is big, huge business for criminal. Go for the criminals. They don't seem to be doing that either.
No, and it's all very well saying just patrolling the beaches, but surely organised crime is here behind this. Do we not know anything about it? If not, well, why not?
No. Let's move on to COP26, the climate conference. Over 190 nations and organisations pledged yesterday to quit coal. So some of the biggest coal-dependent countries, Australia, India, China, US, did not, though. What does that say, Justin?
Yeah, it's not really helpful. I mean, dear old Nauru, who's one of those countries in danger of actually sinking beneath the waves, they're saying we're not going to use... They wouldn't even know what coal looked like, for heaven's sake, and they're going to be none there. So, with the best will in the world, all very well everyone's signing up for it, but if the main people aren't on board, then we are just creating more.
Does it mean anything?
No, not at all. Unless you can come out, particularly with this COP as well, because the other ones have all been about the idea of what we need to do. This was all about people signing up to do things. And frankly, then all just going up sort of at half-cock really doesn't help at all. So the other issue, of course, you then had with the companies saying, well, we'll sign up to it. And we had this yesterday with the banks. But how? How do you measure it? How do you know actually that's what they're doing? Is that do the auditors have to do it? Or do we need to have a special commission just purely to do that measurement? This turns into an industry itself. No, I'm afraid at the moment this is heading in the wrong direction.
You mentioned banks. One of the big issues they're dealing with is whether to now withdraw the financial support. The Fed is now outlining plans to withdraw billions of dollars that has got it through the pandemic.
Well, remember, this is the famous money tree, the quantitative easing, which, 30 years ago, you went to an economics book, no one had heard of quantitative easing. Basically, we are printing money. The Bank of England produces debt, which then gets bought by the government. But what's interesting is this is it's not a confidence trick, but a sort of trick of confidence, because what's happening is, we create the debt, but we own the debt. So it's on both sides of the balance sheet.
This is what's misunderstood by many people. It's not like we've got a credit card to pay off, is it?
If you wanted to, you could quite literally cross both sides off for a lot of this. About 30% of our government debt is owned by us. And ludicrously, we have to pay ourselves a dividend, a yield, a coupon twice a year, which we write out to ourselves. You couldn't make it up. But nonetheless, it's actually a mechanism to getting more money into the system. And it will slowly get withdrawn. The key issue, what the Americans are doing, is saying, right, we're going to keep on, start pulling away from the opiate, the drug of money, and allowing the economy to grow on its own. Remember, this all dates back to the banking crisis. We've been on emergency interest rates, emergency support. The fact we're coming off it is a good sign.
Well, 12 o'clock today. It's the jury is out as to which way it's going to go. That some talk that the interest rate, Bank of England rate, will go up.
It will go up, and I think so.
Really, you are saying it will go up?
I think it'll go up. I'm not on the committee. I don't know, but it goes from 0.1 to 0.25. It's tiny. Mortgage rates have already gone up. That's already taking this into account. Rates will have to go up at some stage, and frankly, the sooner we start that process, the better. There will be the market, no doubt, will have a little frit over it, both here and in the States, but they know it's happening, they know it's coming. But perversely, rising interest rates are a sign of a strengthening economy, and actually that we're in a position where we can afford to do this. The other reason, of course, they're looking at it is something you've discussed before, rising inflation, and how much of that inflation is embedded into the system. We don't know yet. But remember, input inflation into companies in this country is quite often running at about 10%. That has not been 10% to us, about 5% to us. But that's a concern.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, if you were in John Lewis's PR department, today's a big day for you. Your TV ads coming out. I mean, it's amazing. It's in all the papers today. The interesting thing is that they've been rather dull the last few years, the John Lewis ones.
Well, that's in your opinion.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah, do you think? I think
Well,
they've been
the
great.
Elton John one
I
last
love them
year.
anyway.
That was the Elton John one last year. I didn't actually realise it was Elton John to start with till right at the end of the advert.
Yeah.
But it was quite clever.
I thought it was great.
But I think it's the idea to have some competition of who can do the best advert for these things.
Well, it
That's
is
great.
Definitely. So we're revealing that a bit later on.
It's interesting.
I'm sure you're very excited.
They brought it forward a week.
Yes.
Because the online searches were rocketing.
Really?
People are shopping early to avoid the
Panic.
And we've got
Panic
Black
buying.
Friday coming up as well, which is another excuse for
Yes.
more people rushing in to go and buy stuff they don't need, probably.
Are you a Christmas person?
Well, he's
I
not,
love
is he? That was the Grinch speaking just then. I mean,
The Grinch.
people buying stuff they
You're the
don't
Grinch.
need. I tell you what,
Well, you buy
you may
stuff they
dress
don't
up
need.
like Santa Claus, but...
Oh, Justin, you're
It's
not
really
the
good to
Grinch.
see
You're
you.
fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
You know why we wear red? The Father of Christmas wears red, don't you? You know?
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola. In the 1930s, Coca-Cola did a campaign where Father Christmas dressed in their red, and that's the only reason he's
Is
red.
it?
Otherwise, he was green.
He was green before.
Oh, yeah, he was. Yeah, he was
well, there we are.
before. I didn't know it was...
This is
I
an
didn't-
educational
I didn't
channel.
actually
this.
know it was because of that.
Well, there you go.
Thank you very much.
I'm here all week. Oh,
Excellent. Yeah. Are you?
Justin, always good to know. Probably not now. Always good to see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. Very interesting indeed. Did you know that? Let us know. Here's what else is going on today. NHS staff won't reportedly face a mandatory jab or job choice before April, despite fears of soaring waves of COVID cases this winter. Compulsory vaccinations for staff are expected to be announced next week. According to The Telegraph, the rules will not be enforced until March the 31st. Policy is part of efforts to control rising infections, which will also soon include allowing the double jabbed to receive their third booster dose a month earlier than planned.
5 activists have been arrested as hundreds of climate change protesters marched through Glasgow. Scuffles broke out yesterday during an Extinction Rebellion demonstration outside the SSE Energy Company as 2 activists tried to force their way into the building. Police say other arrests were made following assaults on officers who had paint sprayed in their faces. Most of the demonstrations against corporate greenwashing were peaceful.
New studies found that the human papilloma virus, or HPV, it's not so easy in the morning, HPV, we've just woken up, vaccine is cutting cases of cervical cancer by nearly 90%. Let's call it HPV. Cancer Research UK described the findings as historic. Nearly all cervical cancers are caused by viruses. The hope is the vaccine will eliminate the disease. Well, girls are offered the vaccine between the ages of 11 and 13. That's depending on where they live in the UK. The vaccine has also been offered to boys since 2019.
A bird flu prevention zone has been declared across Britain after a rise in detection of the disease. The chief veterinary officers of England, Wales and Scotland say all bird keepers must take action now to prevent bird flu spreading to poultry and other domestic birds. Officials say the risk to the public is very low.
Bit of sport for you. Liverpool are officially through to the last 16 of the Champions League after beating 10-man Atletico Madrid 2-0. The win means that Liverpool will finish top of Group B with 2 games remaining. The Reds now unbeaten in 25 games in all competitions.
Entertainment news, Hollywood A-lister Tom Holland has swapped his Spider-Man suit to become Percy Pig this Christmas as part of Marks & Spencer's bumper festive campaign. In the ad, Percy comes to life after a swing of the wand by a fairy played by another well-known British actor, Dawn French. The pair then roam an M&S food hall store with the company showing a variety of new products, including a triple chocolate panettone and a golden blonde Christmas pudding. M&S launched its campaign on the same day, of course, as rival John Lewis is scheduled to release its new festive advert. That's later this morning. We'll be showing it.
Yes.
Features an alien.
So that's M&S.
That's M&S. Percy
Wait
Pig.
for John.
What?
Do you like Percy Pigs?
Yeah.
Do you like...
Yeah. I like that ad. I think it's great.
Do you?
I'm looking forward to
I'm not so
seeing...
bothered about that one.
Aren't you?
I'm not bothered about Percy Pigs. I don't... Everyone loves them, don't they? The sweets.
I know.
Oh, I thought you were looking as like...
Well, I'm looking at you like that because
I don't like
we
them.
need to move on.
Yeah, today, mostly dry. Well, it's Thursday, come on, relax. With sunny spells, but some coastal parts of England and Wales may see a few further showers. Scotland will be cloudier with light rain moving into the northwest. There we are. Don't
forget GBViews at gbnews.uk if you've got any views this morning. Steve's already emailed having a go at us for describing this as sleaze, the story in all the papers with Owen Paterson and the attempts to block his suspension from the House of Commons. If it's not sleaze, what is it? Do let us know. GB Views at GB News. Now, last night, a group of 190 countries and organisations at the COP26 climate conference committed to ending their use of coal power, termed the world's dirtiest fossil fuel. Coal-fired power is the single largest driver of global temperature increases.
Our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, brings us more about what happened yesterday at COP26.
Well, with quite a lot of glamour here at COP26 in Glasgow yesterday, with Prince Charles, Leonardo DiCaprio, Stella McCartney all meeting to talk about what more the fashion industry could do. Fashion, actually, one of the larger contributors to greenhouse gases in how clothes are made and indeed the disposable nature. But it is another big emitter that is on the table today for discussion, and that is coal. A really contentious issue, actually, because there is a big division in the world when it comes to coal. We've got Western European countries like the UK that have largely are weaning themselves off coal. Barely makes up a couple of percentage when it comes to UK energy supplies, though there is talk about opening another coal mine here in Britain. But elsewhere, the United States, as I say, Germany, France and others, not really as heavily reliant as they once were and are determined to stop using coal as quickly as possible. Elsewhere in the world, though, it is a different story. Now, China has said it wants to stop investing in coal outside of the country and it wants to stop moving away from coal, but it's still opening hundreds of coal mines across the country. Australia, for example, another big user of coal, isn't concerned at all. It says, in fact, it's going to stop and continue digging for new sources of coal. India as well, very heavily reliant. And so the big question is, how can you get to these really ambitious long-term targets without tackling coal, given the fact that it is, in terms of fossil fuel terms, one of the largest emitters of carbon dioxide into our atmosphere? The Prime Minister routinely talks about this, doesn't he? He talks about how it's all about coal, cash, cars and trees to try and sort things out. But coal, being no doubt, is one of the more contentious issues. They couldn't agree it in Rome. The big question is, can they make progress here in Glasgow?
Darren McCaffrey. Well, Denmark, the United States and 12 other countries have backed a COP26 goal to reduce emissions by the global maritime sector to net zero by 2050. The International Maritime Organization, the UN body that regulates the shipping industry, reports that the shipping sector produces 2 to 3% of global carbon dioxide emissions. The IMO, however, is facing pressure to impose a carbon tax on international shipping until the net zero target is reached.
Well, joining us now is Ben Murray, Chief Executive of Maritime UK. Ben, good morning. Thanks for coming on. Is the maritime industry, do you think, being unfairly targeted when the airline industry contributes just as much carbon?
Yeah, good morning. It's good to be with you. I think it's maritime, like aviation, is a significant emitter, and I think it's absolutely right that focus and attention is on both, but it needs to be fair and it needs to be consistent with the regulation that we have. I think it's worth viewers realising, and they probably know, we've been on a few times to talk about it because we're really proud of this, that as an island nation, 95% of all of our trade comes on a ship, and globally that's 90%. Maritime is the most carbon efficient way of moving goods. You think about all those things that are in containers, it wouldn't work taking them on a plane. But because so much moves on a ship globally, that means that there's about 3% of all emissions globally are from maritime. So we know we've got to play our part. And what we're keen to ensure this week is that the rest of the world knows that the UK, as a maritime nation, as a proud historic maritime power, has some really cutting edge solutions around hydrogen, around batteries, around design and efficiency to make reductions today. And that very much ties into the Prime Minister's focus on shipbuilding and the role we can play in levelling up coastal areas, which it's a no-brainer for us. So we want to make that case, and we want the ambition that happens at the International Maritime Organization, which is the only UN body we have in London. Let's use that. Let's celebrate that leadership. We want them to go further than they have, and the UK is ready to be at the vanguard of that.
Ben, I'm confused because I don't know what net zero would look like in terms of maritime, because you're not going to put trees on your cargo ships. So how would it actually work? You mentioned different fuel sources. Is that the way this is going to happen?
Yeah, it's much more complex than cars, which by and large, I think we know we're all going to have battery-powered cars and charge those as we do. For maritime, because there's so many different types of vessel doing different sorts of things, In the smaller end of the market, you're looking at batteries probably. You're looking at a slightly bigger, you're looking at hydrogen, you're looking at transition fuels, LNG, you're looking at biofuels, and the larger end, you're looking at, actually, quite frankly, we don't quite know what the solution is going to be for the largest of vessels, and we need to move forward on all of those at once. So it's a great opportunity for us in the UK to move forward. But one of the quickest things we can do is, if you think of it like car charging points, we need to get electricity around ports across the UK so that when a vessel comes in, it can turn its diesel engine off and plug in. And also, as technology develops, they can charge those vessels. And no country in the world has installed this. We call this shore power. But charging points, you can think of it as without government co-investment, just to give some incentivization to show the direction of travel. So, and that helps when ship owners are going to be needing lots of different solutions. It's good to narrow that and provide some certainty. And this week in Glasgow, we've got an international maritime hub where you've got British companies showing the world some really world first. On Friday, launching the world liquid hydrogen bunker, which is how you fuel ships. And that's really exciting for the UK to be at the forefront of that. And it was an opportunity that, as a maritime nation, we shouldn't miss.
OK. Great to have you on, Ben Murray, Chief Executive.
Have some good news. Thank you.
Maritime UK. It is. Thank you so much. Thanks, Ben.
Coming up, Biden has egg on his face after his party lost the governor's race in Virginia. We'll have more on that. But first, a look at the weather.
Hello, good morning. It's another cold one out there for many of us. A touch of frost in places this morning, but plenty of sunshine where we see the lowest temperatures. Still some coastal showers about today, but with high pressure starting to build in from the west, fewer showers and isobars a little bit less packed together, so less windy as well. All in all, a brighter and drier day for many, certainly more sunshine around for much of central and eastern parts of the UK. Still, though, some showers feeding into the east of England on this brisk cold north wind and West Wales as well as Cornwall. One or two there for Scotland at first, but they die away. And then for the vast majority, actually, it's simply a sunny day, certainly inland. Long spells of sunshine and temperatures of 8 to 11 Celsius, feeling cold in the wind, but out of the wind in the sunshine. Pleasant enough if you wrap up warm. Into the evening, the showers continue for a time in the east, but even these die away later. And then overnight, lengthy clear spells across much of England and Wales, whilst thicker cloud starts to arrive into parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, with some light outbreaks of rain for the likes of Orkney, Caithness, Sutherland, West Highlands. That'll keep temperatures up in the north, but where we've got the clear skies further south, as low as -3 Celsius on the thermometer first thing Friday. Despite the chill, though, that's where the best of the sunshine will be through the morning, and clear blue skies continue into the afternoon for southern parts of England, South Wales as well. Thicker cloud tends to topple in elsewhere, and again some light outbreaks of rain for parts of the Northwest Highlands, central Scotland, the Northern Isles. But all in all, temperatures doing OK tomorrow, a little bit less chilly compared to recent days. It turns more unsettled in the north this weekend with some wet weather and some very strong winds Saturday night for northern and western Scotland. It also turns a bit milder.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for Political Correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is Political Correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
Hi, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
And we're hosting a show right here on GB News, 9:30am till 12pm, every single weekday. Call to the point.
We're going to be talking about all the big issues that matter to you at home in Britain.
Absolutely, whether it's holding politicians to account, discussing what's taking place in the Channel, banging on about law and order, we're not afraid to do the absolute lot of it.
Yes, and if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we'll be saying it.
Make sure you're here 9:30am till 12pm, every single weekday, right here on GB News. 4 to the point.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Great British Breakfast. Coming up to 6:30.
Now, the American President Joe Biden is doubling down after his party suffered a humiliating defeat in Virginia. The Republican Glenn Youngkin, a political newcomer, came from behind to beat the Democratic incumbent Terry McAuliffe. The vote was seen as a first major referendum on Joe Biden's presidency, but the US leader has rejected any blame for the loss, saying voters are upset and uncertain about a lot of things, including the pandemic, education, the economy, and the price of petrol. Biden rejected suggestions the defeat signals a collapse in support for his party. Instead, he cited Trump voters and the conservative folks, among other reasons for Youngkin's shock win.
Well, Matthew Tiermon, journalist and political analyst, joining us now from Orlando. And it's good evening to you there, Matthew. Thanks for joining us. Is Biden's presidency in crisis?
Absolutely. All signals from across the country on this off-cycle election suggest a deep, deep crisis, not just for Biden. Of course, there is a partial referendum on Biden, but on the entire Democratic Party and the major move to the left that the Democratic Party has represented in this past year since Biden took control of the presidency. New Jersey, Virginia, an election, a referendum in Minnesota, Texas, New York City, in Buffalo, everywhere you look, the Democratic Party was pushed back by the centrists. New Jersey, I think, was the most stark evidence of that. When you look at what Joe Biden did in the presidency.
Matthew?
In votes.
Oh dear, that's a shame, isn't it?
Just when you thought we might get him back, it went black.
Yes, we
sorry
will
about
try and re-establish that line. Matthew in Orlando for us there, but let's see if we can get that there.
Yeah, let's, in the meantime, have a look at what else is going on today. NHS staff won't reportedly face a mandatory jab or job choice before April. That's despite fears of soaring waves of COVID cases this winter. Compulsory vaccinations for NHS staff are expected to be announced next week, but according to The Telegraph, the rules will not be enforced until March the 31st. The policy is part of efforts to control rising infections, which will also soon include allowing the double jab to receive their third booster dose a month earlier than planned.
French authorities say a person's died and another's missing after trying to cross the English Channel to get to the UK. It's believed the person was unconscious when they were pulled from the water and pronounced dead when rescuers returned to the dock. More than 400 people were rescued during a rescue operation in the Strait of Pas-de-Calais on Tuesday night and into Wednesday as well. It comes as figures show more than 20,000 migrants have travelled to the UK in small boats so far this year. This is more than double the total for the whole of 2020.
The British trawler that was detained by France during the post-Brexit fishing row has been released by the French authorities. The Scottish-registered scallop dredger left the northern French port of Le Havre last night. French authorities held the boat last week, saying it did not have a licence. The dispute over post-Brexit fishing licences flared up last month after the UK and Jersey denied fishing permits to several French vessels.
5 activists have been arrested as hundreds of climate change protesters marched through Glasgow. Scuffles broke out yesterday during an Extinction Rebellion demonstration outside the SSE Energy company. 2 activists tried to force their way into the building. Police say other arrests were made following assaults on officers who had paint sprayed in their faces. Most of the demonstrations against corporate greenwashing were peaceful.
A new study has found that the human papillomavirus, or HPV, vaccine is cutting cases of cervical cancer by nearly 90%. Cancer Research UK described the findings as historic. Nearly all cervical cancers are caused by viruses, and the hope is that the vaccine will eliminate the disease completely. Girls are offered the vaccine between the ages of 11 and 13, depending on where they live in the United Kingdom. The vaccine has also been offered to boys since 2019.
A bird flu prevention zone has been declared across Britain after a rise in detection of the disease. The chief veterinary officers of England, Wales and Scotland say all bird keepers must take action now to prevent the flu spreading to poultry and other domestic birds. Officials say the risk to the public is very low.
Thousands of newly retired people are still waiting to get their first state pension payments. Those affected are now being paid following a catch-up exercise by the Department for Work and Pensions, but more than 4,900 applications have yet to be processed. The pandemic and staffing issues have been blamed for the delay.
Quick look at the sport. The main headline: Liverpool officially through to the last 16 of the Champions League after beating a 10-man Atletico Madrid side 2-0. The win means Liverpool will finish top of Group B with 2 games remaining. The Reds are now unbeaten in 25 games in all competitions.
Entertainment news: Hollywood A-lister Tom Holland has swapped his Spider-Man suit to become Percy Pig. That's in this Christmas's ad for Marks and Spencer's and their bumper festive campaign. And in the ad, Percy comes to life after a swing of the wand by a fairy, played by another well-known British actor, Dawn French. The pair then roam an M&S food hall store, with the company showing a variety of new products, including a triple chocolate panettone and a golden blonde Christmas pudding. M&S launched its campaign on the same day as rival John Lewis is scheduled to release its new festive advert later this morning, and we'll be showing you that first here on the Great British Breakfast.
We will. Weather today will be a mostly dry day, sunny spells as well, but some coastal parts of England and Wales may see a few further showers. Scotland will be cloudier with light rain moving into the northwest.
Coming up on the Great British Breakfast, should we be banned from using fireworks in our own back garden? Our reporter Will Hollis will be telling us more on that after the break.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for Political Correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is Political Correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
Hi, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
And we're hosting a show right here on GB News, 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. every single weekday. Call to the point.
We're going to be talking about all the big issues that matter to you at home in Britain.
Absolutely, whether it's holding politicians to account, discussing what's taking place in the Channel, banging on about law and order, we're not afraid to do the absolute lot of it.
Yes, and if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we'll be saying it.
Make sure you're here 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. every single weekday right here on GB News for To The Point.
Welcome back. Great British Breakfast with Kirsty and Simon. It's coming up to 20 minutes to 7.
Good morning. Now, skies across Britain will dazzle over the next few days as the country celebrates Diwali and Bonfire Night. We should warn that the following video does contain flashing images. Well, this year, many large public displays are cancelled due to the pandemic, which means some are heading to private displays where the risk of injury or accident is higher. It's not just you who's more likely to be affected, but your pets as well. Animal welfare charity RSPCA is pushing for stricter firework regulations.
Well, let's get more on the rules. Our East Midlands reporter, Will Hollis, joins us now. Will, very good morning to you. It'll be the second year some parts of Britain will have seen their local displays cancelled. And what is the law about who can do what and where?
Good morning. Yes, you're completely correct. For the second year running, many big cities and towns are choosing not to host their annual bonfire events, or in some cases Diwali events. It's Diwali today, bonfire night tomorrow, just in time for the weekend. Where I am today in Nottingham, they chose to cancel their big bonfire event about a month ago, citing that because it's a large open space rather than a gated event like many bonfire events, it'd be too hard to manage the crowds and control it. Now, there are some rules around bonfire night and the sale of fireworks that most people don't know. First of all, you have to be over 18 to buy fireworks, and you can't even carry them in public places without your ID proving that you're over 18. Most of the year, you can buy fireworks from licensed sellers. At this time of year and celebratory times of years like New Year's Eve, registered sellers, that's your supermarkets in your shops, they can sell them. Under normal circumstances, you are allowed to sell fireworks at any time in the year, as long as it's up until 11 p.m. When it comes to bonfire night, that extends to 12 p.m. Diwali, it's 12 a.m. Diwali, it's 1 a.m. and New Year's Eve, it's 1 a.m. There are also some really strict rules about where you can set them off. You can obviously hold them in private displays. We're going to see so many of those tonight for Diwali and tomorrow for bonfire night. But also, you've got to be really careful to follow the rules about where you can set them off. You can't set them off in public places. Now, what I was just saying about what you were just saying about the RSPCA is that this year, because there's so many places that are likely to see more private displays, the RSPCA is really worried about the effect it's going to have on animals during this particular season of fireworks.
OK, Will, thank you for that. Great. Right. Back to a story that we were just covering. US President Joe Biden's doubling down after his party suffered a humiliating defeat in Virginia. Republican Glenn Youngkin, a political newcomer, came from behind to beat the Democratic incumbent Terry McAuliffe. Well, the vote was seen as first major referendum on Biden's presidency, but the US leader has rejected any blame for the loss, saying voters are upset and uncertain about a lot of things, including the pandemic, education, the economy, and the price of petrol. Biden rejected suggestions the defeat signals collapse in support for the Democratic Party. Instead, he cited Trump voters and the conservative folks, among other reasons for Youngkin's shock win.
Right. Well, we were interrupted. We were talking to Matthew Tiermond, a journalist and political analyst, who's joining us now from Orlando. And we got cut off after you'd explained that this was absolutely a judgment on Joe Biden. But there's one man, of course, that everybody's going to be waiting to hear from, and that's Donald Trump. Because will this just strengthen the prospect of him running for election?
Well, sorry about that, first of all. I'm in Orlando at a fiscal policy conference, and Florida, nothing's ever easy, but at least the weather's nice. Yes, and it was interesting to see both in New Jersey and Virginia, it was the suburbs that drove this and the shift in the suburban voter. Donald Trump did not campaign for either of these candidates. And, you know, one of the takeaways for certainly Trump critics or centrists in the Republican Party will be, well, the fact he did not help may have helped. It was these purple districts, districts that are a mix of Republicans and Dems, or even ones that have a lot of centrist Dems, that look to have rejected Joe Biden and his proxies, Phil Murphy, the gubernatorial candidate, and Terry McAuliffe, who is very closely connected to the Clintons, who is a perfect representation of the leftist establishment in the Washington, D.C. area. And it was those suburbs that have often gone blue down to the county level that came out and supported the challengers to these incumbent Democrats. So it is interesting. Trump will be running again. He's telegraphed that very, very openly to many in his circle, to people that I know. It's certainly his intent to run again. We will see what happens in the midterms because that will determine quite a bit. If we win, the Republican side wins the House and the Senate back, and very much so on the strength of Trump's endorsements and his campaigning in many swing districts, then he will be very much emboldened. If he endorses losers, does not help win back the House and Senate, whether he wants to run or not, there will be many Republicans lining up to suggest that his control over the base is not as strong as it was over these last 4 years.
And Matthew, where are you looking now, keeping your eye on? Where's the next must-watch battle, so to speak?
Well, the midterms. The Republicans do have a tough Senate map. There are 33 seats up, and more than half of them are going to have to be defended by Republicans. Arizona is going to be very interesting. Georgia is going to be very interesting. Georgia went to a second ballot in last November, and then 2 Democrats won, which skewed the balance of the Senate from a Republican lead to a 50-50 tie, with the tiebreak being the vice president. So they have the Senate nominally, but you have a very strong candidate in Herschel Walker, who has Trump's support. He's an ex-NFL professional football player, and he is doing very, very well in Georgia. That one is going to help determine the outcome of the Senate, as will Arizona. Ohio's a race I'm watching quite closely. Josh Mandel, who'd run in the past, is I think very well positioned to run away with this primary and take over for the retiring Republican Rob Portman. But the House, what we learned last night is the House, many seats are going to be in play, and it looks like it could be like 2010, the Tea Party red wave that happened in the first midterm after Obama was elected. And what we saw in Bergen County, as well as suburban Virginia, outside D.C., which is usually very, very blue, very, very Democrat, they came out really hard for Youngkin on a relative basis, and that swung Virginia, and New Jersey came so close. Biden won New Jersey overwhelmingly, 60-40, and here we are neck and neck with less than a percentage point separating the incumbent and the Republican challenger. But there are proxies all over the country. In New York City, city council seats won by Republicans. That doesn't happen very often. In Texas, San Antonio, which is a blue bastion, a Dem bastion, was won by a Republican. So there are very interesting proxies that portend a very strong midterm red wave for the Republicans to take back both the House and the Senate.
Matthew, Joe Biden says basically, oh, look, nothing to do with me. It's rising inflation. It's a slow economic recovery. It's immigration. It's everything that I inherited. The withdrawal from Afghanistan, though, that really shook a lot of the core voters on who he relies.
Oh, certainly. And that is just one data point of many. The push for mass COVID vaccination by government fiat and force, the talk of vaccine passports. In New Jersey, that certainly hurt Murphy a lot. His advisors were caught on tape by Project Veritas, a journalist organization that I'm on the board of, saying that after the election, of course, we'll push mandatory vaccines and vaccine passports. Well, I think that spooked a lot of voters as well. And then in Virginia, I think the defining factor was critical race theory and school boards, hard left school boards that McAuliffe endorsed, saying parents don't have a right to say what's in the curriculums of the students that are the progeny of voters. Voters pushed back against that hard left policy prescription as well. I mean, I think most Americans know, I think most people around the world know after watching Biden fall asleep at the last climate change conference, he is pretty much a comatose vegetable, and that does not breed a lot of faith either in the Democratic Party with him at the top of the party.
You can just see Trump supporters saying, you know, be careful what you wish for.
Well, I think that Trump really put up very strong numbers in 2020. I'm of the belief that there was a lot of chicanery in 6 states, which had urban machines, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Maricopa County, Arizona, Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Atlanta, Georgia. I believe this election had a lot of chicanery that we still need to get to the bottom of. Record-setting turnout for both parties, but there was no enthusiasm for Joe Biden around the nation. So I believe that those who question the veracity of that election have valid concerns.
Really? I mean, Matthew, isn't it time just to move on? I mean, you've got the next election to focus on. Wouldn't time be best served and effort best served doing that rather than trying to rewrite history?
Oh, well, there's no rewriting history. The truth is going to be the truth, no matter what sort of coerced narratives are pushed by media or those who have a very strong agenda. I did investigations in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, in Georgia. And look, you see what just happened last night, a rejection of Biden. And this was across the country in districts that you would not usually see this. So when you say, oh, just let bygones be bygones, the majority of the Republican base certainly believes that the veracity of the election's in question. And many Democrats, independents, and centrists do as well. And I think we're validated in that concern based on what we saw play out last night in Democrat districts, winning, seeing Republicans get so much inroads in those districts.
You're also going to have to find out what the result of any inquiry into January the 6th proves as well, aren't you?
Oh, we certainly do.
Matthew, really good to talk to you. Matthew Tinn, thanks for living through those technical issues. It's really good to have got you back.
Thank you. Now, coming up, former cricketer Gary Ballance has confessed to using a racial slur against fellow Yorkshire cricketer Azim Rafiq. What does this mean, though, for the sport and the use of "it's just banter" excuse? We'll take a look after the weather.
Hello, good morning. It's another cold one out there for many of us. A touch of frost in places this morning, but plenty of sunshine where we see the lowest temperatures. Still some coastal showers about today, but with high pressure starting to build in from the west, fewer showers and isobars a little bit less packed together, so less windy as well. All in all, a brighter and drier day for many, certainly more sunshine around for much of central and eastern parts of the UK. Still, though, some showers feeding into the east of England on this brisk cold north wind and West Wales as well as Cornwall. One or two there for Scotland at first, but they die away. And then for the vast majority, actually, it's simply a sunny day. Certainly inland, long spells of sunshine and temperatures of 8 to 11 Celsius, feeling cold in the wind, but out of the wind in the sunshine. Pleasant enough if you wrap up warm. Into the evening, the showers continue for a time in the east, but even these die away later. And then overnight, lengthy clear spells across much of England and Wales, whilst thicker cloud starts to arrive into parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, with some light outbreaks of rain for the likes of Orkney, Caithness, Sutherland, West Highlands. That'll keep temperatures up in the north, but where we've got the clear skies further south, as low as -3 Celsius on the thermometer first thing Friday. Despite the chill, though, that's where the best of the sunshine will be through the morning, and clear blue skies continue into the afternoon for southern parts of England, South Wales as well. Thicker cloud tends to topple in elsewhere, and again some light outbreaks of rain for parts of the northwest Highlands, central Scotland, the Northern Isles. But all in all, temperatures doing okay tomorrow, a little bit less chilly compared to recent days. It turns more unsettled in the north this weekend with some wet weather and some very strong winds Saturday night for northern and western Scotland. It also turns a bit milder.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for Political Correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is Political Correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
Hi, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
And we're hosting a show right here on GB News, 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. every single weekday, called To The Point.
We're going to be talking about all the big issues that matter to you at home in Britain.
Absolutely, whether it's holding politicians to account, discussing what's taking place in the channel, banging on about law and order, we're not afraid to do the absolute lot of it.
Yes, and if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we'll be saying it.
Make sure you're here 9:30 a.m. till 12 p.m. every single weekday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
Good morning, welcome back to the Great British Breakfast at coming up to 5 to 7. Now, the Royal British Legion's celebrating its centenary, marking 100 years of supporting our armed forces at home and on the battlefield. Our Wales reporter has been to the opening of the Field of Remembrance at Cardiff Castle. It's a tradition that began in 1928 in the grounds of Westminster Abbey. And this year, there are 6 fields across the UK. Lily Hewitson has more for us.
For the last century, November has been a month of remembrance, and this year is no exception. As we remember those who have lost their lives in conflict, from the First World War to the present day, the Royal British Legion's Field of Remembrance has been opened at Cardiff Castle.
The charitable remit of the Royal British Legion is to keep remembrance alive. Many of us as individuals would have experienced loss in recent conflicts, First and Second World War, grandfathers, fathers, brothers, and obviously in the more recent conflicts as well. So it's really important that us as a nation, we remember that sacrifice and those who have ultimately given the ultimate sacrifice for us and helped shape the world we live in today. When the organisation was founded back in 1921, in the aftermath of what was then known as the Great War, the worst war that the world had ever seen, there was a desperate need for our work and our services. And the fact that we are still here 100 years later, delivering the same services, delivering welfare support, campaigning on behalf of the armed forces, remembering their sacrifice, that sacrifice is going to continue. And actually, we're working with many more younger veterans these days, and they will need our support moving forward. So it's just as important now, remember, as it was back in 1921. My mother lost two of her brothers during the Second World War. One was killed in the Far East and the second one was killed in Italy. My father served himself out in the Far East. I, of course, myself served for a number of years and lost friends and comrades, both in accidents and in active conflict. So it's a very personal thing. So I think about those individuals who've given the ultimate sacrifice for us.
I think that, some people confuse this just with the memories of the First World War or the Second World War, where, of course, this has got huge significance. But actually, there's been conflicts in between all of those years, and there are many occasions which I think when you bring the community of Wales and the rest of the UK together to just reflect on the sacrifices that people have made. I think that's important. I think the Royal British Legion do a fantastic job of just getting us all to pause for a moment once a year to respect the families and of people who've made that ultimate sacrifice. So I think it's a really important part of the national calendar. It's not just about the big world wars, which are obviously embedded in people's memories, but every year, almost every month of every year, there are service personnel somewhere in the world, maybe very close to home, as you say, helping with the COVID crisis, doing unbelievable things without much recognition sometimes, often in very dangerous circumstances. So if this is an occasion to just think about that and to reflect on that and to pay them the respect that they deserve, then I think that's a really, it's a fantastic few moments of our time, the sort of thing we should always do.
During those 2 minutes of silence, whether it be today or on Remembrance Sunday, what do you think about in those 2 minutes of quiet?
It's a really interesting question, that. I mean, I do think about some of my my ancestors, or my grandfathers both fought in one in both World Wars and one in the Second World War only, and you do pause and think about that. But actually, it's I thought a lot about the last 18 months and just what the nation has been through, what individuals have been through.
Yes, it is an important time of year, I think, for the armed forces especially, but also I think for the British public, who are very supportive of their armed forces. And I think all the people that have served and people that have been lost over many, many years now, I mean, we've all either got family connections or community connections, and these are all still very important to people, and it is an important time of year to be able to do that. The British Legion have, been supporting the armed forces for 100 years, making sure that we are well supported. So I'm sure that will continue, and I'm sure remembrance in its form, and maybe it will change over many years. I think it's changed a little bit down the years, will continue, but I still think it's something quite important to British people. It's something that makes us connect with people that have served before, and so I'm sure it will continue in one form or another. So, I mean, this year we've been doing a lot of commemoration around the Battle of Britain and some of the people from Wales who served, and I was involved in a lot of that sort of historical research with some of our colleagues. So I was actually thinking a little bit about them in particular, but also some colleagues I have served with and some who have lost their lives in recent years as well.
Lily Hewitson with that report, 100 years of the Royal British Legion, the most amazing charity. And if you get the chance to wear a poppy and to donate, it's a great idea.
It is. OK, let's get some sport for you now. And former England cricket star Gary Ballance has admitted to using a racial slur against Yorkshire teammate Azim Rafiq during their time at Headingley. In a lengthy statement, Ballance said, "It has been reported that I used a racial slur, and, as I told the Independent Inquiry, I accept that I did so and I regret doing so." Rafiq, in September 2020, gave an interview in which he claimed institutional racism at Yorkshire County Cricket Club left him close to taking his own life, prompting an investigation by the club. We'll be speaking to former England cricket star Monty Panesar in the next hour to look more deeply into this.
Should we have a look at last night's Champions League action? Well, let's see what happens.
Let's have a look, yeah.
Starting off with Liverpool as they swept aside Atletico Madrid 2-0. Early goals from
Sadio Mane and Diogo Jota left Atletico floundering and lost their way completely when Philippe was sent off before half-time. Liverpool now top Group B, remain undefeated in Europe. Elsewhere, Manchester City continued their good form as they beat Club Bruges 4-1. Phil Foden and Riyad Mahrez opened the scoring before Raheem Sterling finally ended his 12-game goal drought. The game was wrapped up in injury time by Gabriel Jesus, securing Manchester City top spot in Group A, that ahead of Paris Saint-Germain.
It's not easy doing the sport, is it?
Why?
Just isn't.
The names and things.
Also,
it's like anything. It's like the news. I mean,
the goal drought. What was it?
Oh, well, you were talking about sports speak.
Sports speak.
Sports speak, as we call it. Yeah. Well, listen, I don't think about it. I've done it for years, so there we are.
I know you have. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Rushing home from school to watch it. Right. We'll be back with everything in just a moment.
So what age does that make me then? Yeah, let's not even go there.
It's good to see you standing up. Right, very good morning. It's 7 o'clock. Thursday, the 4th of November. These are the stories that matter to you and to us on the Great British Breakfast with me, Simon McCoy, and Kirsty Gallagher.
Sleazy does it. Prime Minister Boris Johnson's facing a backlash after delaying the suspension of Tory MP Owen Paterson, who broke lobbying rules. Opposition MPs and some in his own party say it's one rule for them and one for us. What do you think, though? We want to know. Let us know at gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews.
Meanwhile, NHS staff won't be forced to have a mandatory jab this winter, despite fears of a spike in cases. But the public are being offered boosters a month earlier.
And also, it's simply not cricket. Former England batter Gary Ballance admits using a racial slur against his ex-Yorkshire teammate Azim Rafiq, as the fallout continues with high-profile sponsors cutting ties with the Yorkshire County Club. More on that coming up for you.
And great news in the fight against cervical cancer. A new study finds that the HPV vaccine is cutting cases of cervical cancer by nearly 90%. That's a success rate that's being described as historic.
Plus, the annual Christmas ding-dong between the big stores as John Lewis releases its Christmas television advert. It features an alien this time. Going to look at the competition as well. M&S relying on a pig idea.
OK, all those stories to come, but let's just show you what's on the front pages this morning. And the Prime Minister's been accused of wallowing in sleaze by changing Parliament's anti-corruption rules to save the Conservative MP Owen Paterson from being suspended. That's according to the Metro this morning.
The Daily Telegraph writes that under plans being considered by ministers, NHS staff will not be forced to have the COVID vaccine this winter.
The Eye also leads with the news that the Prime Minister ripped up anti-corruption rules to save the Tory MP Owen Paterson from being suspended.
According to The Sun, a completely different story. Countdown host Anne Robinson had her co-star, there we are, Rachel Riley's microphone muted as part of a toxic feud. That's on the front of The Sun.
It's brilliant. It's a good idea. And now, Prime Minister Boris Johnson is facing a backlash after blocking that suspension of Owen Paterson, who had broken lobbying rules, says the Daily Mail.
England's Deputy Chief Medical Officer, Professor Jonathan Van Tam, has warned that too many people wrongly believe that the COVID-19 pandemic is over. He added booster jabs and masks will help save Christmas, writes the Daily Express today.
Boris Johnson's been accused of a colossal misjudgment after 51 Tory MPs rebelled over his decision to block that suspension of MP Owen Paterson. That's according to The Times this morning.
Boris Johnson flew back from the COP26 climate summit on a private jet for dinner with a friend. That is in the Daily Mirror today.
The Yorkshire Post runs with cricket club sponsors exit in racism row. This comes as sponsors of Yorkshire County Cricket Club, including Yorkshire Tea, pulled back on their support for the club as the row deepens over its reaction to racist remarks made towards Azim Rafiq. We'll have much more on this later in the programme. We're going to be talking to Monty Panesar.
And moving on to The Independent, writes that a number of senior Conservatives have disowned Boris Johnson's attempt to neuter Parliament's sleaze watchdog, in a move that has been branded a shocking blow to democracy in the UK.
And finally, astronauts returning to Earth have been warned not to go to the toilet after an issue on their rocket. It raises many more questions than it answers. Anyway, that's the Daily Star front page this morning.
Houston, we have the problem.
The Sun looking at the countdown, right? and Rachel's countdown meltdown. And inside, they look at other stars who can't stand each other, who present together.
Oh, who's that?
I don't know, but we're not there.
No, that's good, because that's wrong. That would be wrong.
That would be wrong. But I didn't know you could turn the other one's mic off. That sounds wrong. Something to investigate.
I didn't know that
later on.
Just wait for it. Now, last night, a group of 190 countries and organisations at the COP26 climate conference committed to ending their use of coal power, termed the world's dirtiest fossil fuel. Coal-fired power is the single largest driver of global temperature increases. Our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, brings us more about what happened yesterday at COP26.
Well, with quite a lot of glamour here at COP26 in Glasgow yesterday, with Prince Charles, Leonardo DiCaprio, Stella McCartney all meeting to talk about what more the fashion industry could do. Fashion, actually, one of the larger contributors to greenhouse gases in how clothes are made and indeed the disposable nature. But it is another big emitter that is on the table today for discussion, and that is coal. A really contentious issue, actually, because there is a big division in the world when it comes to coal. We've got Western European countries like the UK that have largely are weaning themselves off coal. Barely makes up a couple of percentage when it comes to UK energy supplies, though there is talk about opening another coal mine here in Britain. But elsewhere, the United States, as I say, Germany, France and others, not really as heavily reliant as they once were and are determined to stop using coal as quickly as possible. Elsewhere in the world, though, it is a different story. Now, China has said it wants to stop investing in coal outside of the country and it wants to stop moving away from coal, but it's still opening hundreds of coal mines across the country. Australia, for example, another big user of coal, isn't concerned at all. It says, in fact, it's going to stop and continue digging for new sources of coal. India as well, very heavily reliant. And so the big question is, how can you get to these really ambitious long-term targets without tackling coal, given the fact that it is, in terms of fossil fuel terms, one of the largest emitters of carbon dioxide into our atmosphere? The Prime Minister routinely talks about this, doesn't he? He talks about how it's all about coal, cash, cars and trees to try and sort things. But coal, being no doubt, is one of the more contentious issues. They couldn't agree it in Rome. The big question is, can they make progress here in Glasgow?
That was Darren McCaffrey, who suddenly froze. It's chilly up there.
And we'll be hearing from him a lot more in the coming days.
Now, The Telegraph is reporting that NHS leaders have urged the government to delay making jabs mandatory over fears it could spark a mass exodus of staff. That's despite Professor Jonathan Van Tam's warning that some hard months are to come this winter. Comes the government opens a consultation on whether the mandatory rules being introduced in care homes next week should be extended to the wider NHS workforce. Well, Chief Executive of the NHS providers, Chris Hobson, has said the government should delay the move until April so the NHS can get through a very difficult winter, adding that losing a very large number of unvaccinated NHS staff would be a risk to patient safety and the quality of care.
Meanwhile, 1 in 10 care home staff are not fully vaccinated against COVID as deadline looms, meaning staff shortage is possible come the winter. Well, Gavin Edwards, Senior National Officer for Social Care at Unison, is with us now. Gavin, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. Just tell us your reaction to the possible delay to this vaccination for NHS staff.
Well, look, the delay in the NHS is welcome frankly, that same delay should at the very least be put in place in social care as well. We know that mandatory vaccination, forcing people to have the jab, isn't the way to go in terms of rolling out the vaccine programme, be it in social care or be it in the NHS. What we know works in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland is persuasion, targeted advertising, peer-to-peer conversations. That's the way to successfully roll out the vaccine, which we all want to see public service workers having, so that they can keep themselves and other people safe. And so a delay is welcome, but we would rather see the government concentrating its efforts in whichever part of the public services on persuading people.
If there was anything good that came out of the pandemic, it was our attitude to social care, the understanding of just how important it is to all of us. Are you getting the sense that already it's being pushed into that sort of second-class area again when it's compared with the NHS generally?
I think that's a real concern. We all saw what happened in the pandemic in terms of the fact that PPE wasn't provided when it was needed in the early stages of the pandemic, that testing wasn't put in place as quickly as it should have been, and a whole range of other issues. We haven't seen any action on care worker pay. And that's, in terms of the staff shortages, which is kind of mixed in with this mandatory vaccination debate, we haven't seen any action from the government on boosting care worker pay. And that's something they need to really urgently address. If we don't see care worker pay being boosted, then care worker salaries are just going to freeze, and people are not going to be able to recruit the staff that they need. The government's launched an advertising programme, but they should be concentrating on the fundamentals.
How bad is the staffing situation in CAMS? We've been talking about this for quite a few months now. Where are we with it right now?
There is a serious staffing crisis already happening in social care because of other sectors recruiting strongly, because of poverty wages in the social care sector, because of a lack of sick pay. And as a result, we're hearing daily reports from our members and from employers that we deal with of care home closures, of care home providers handing back contracts to local authorities. And that potentially could have a devastating impact on the quality of care that people receive, and also if they have to move care homes, that can also have a devastating impact on them. So we need urgent action on pay. We need, at the very least, to see the mandatory vaccination deadline delayed, but we would like to see it scrapped immediately. The government's got to think again on this, otherwise it is going to have a major crisis on its hands.
Gavin, it's so easy to be judgmental, isn't it, and wonder why 1 in 10 care home staff don't get themselves jabbed. But the bottom line is you'd rather have that one person working than not, even if you were relying on that care generally.
That's absolutely right. We've got to look at the whole picture here, and there are other options. People could be talking about mandatory daily testing for unvaccinated care workers. That's an option to concerned about the safety and the quality of care for elderly people, for vulnerable people, for all of the people who receive care, then the possibility of care homes closing because of staffing shortages, because of possibly 60,000 care workers being lost from a sector when they can't replace them, then people have got to look at that issue. The government have got to look at that issue because they should be concerned about the safety and the quality of care that people receive. And if they're dealing with the vaccine issue in a heavy-handed way and it's causing these alternative problems, they've got to act on pay and on delaying this deadline.
OK, Gavin Edwards, Unison Senior National Officer for Social Care. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Now, let's show you what else is going on today. The British trawler that was detained by France during that post-Brexit fishing row has been released by the French authorities. The Scottish-registered scallop dredger left the northern port of Le Havre last night. Authorities in France held the boat last week, saying it did not have a licence. Well, the dispute over post-Brexit fishing licences flared up last month after the UK and Jersey denied fishing permits to several French boats.
5 activists have been arrested as hundreds of climate change protesters marched through Glasgow. Scuffles broke out yesterday during an Extinction Rebellion demonstration outside the SSE Energy Company as 2 activists tried to force their way into the building. Police say other arrests were made following assaults on officers who had paint sprayed in their faces. Most of the demonstrations against corporate greenwashing were peaceful.
A new study has found that the human papillomavirus, or HPV, vaccine is cutting cases of cervical cancer by nearly 90%. Cancer Research UK described the findings as historic. Nearly all cervical cancers are caused by viruses, and the hope is that the vaccine will eliminate the disease completely. Girls are offered the vaccine between the ages of 11 and 13, depending on where they live in the UK. The vaccine's also been offered to boys since 2019.
A bird flu prevention zone has been declared across Britain after a rise in detection of the disease. The chief veterinary officers of England, Wales and Scotland say all bird keepers must take action now to prevent the flu spreading to poultry and other domestic birds. Officials say the risk to the public is very low.
What a fine-looking bird
They
that
are,
was.
absolutely.
Good on him.
Sport, Liverpool are officially through to the last 16. Good on him. The last 16 in the Champions League after beating 10-man Atletico Madrid 2-0. The win means that Liverpool will finish top of Group B with 2 games remaining. The Reds are now unbeaten in 25 games in all competitions.
Entertainment news. Hollywood A-list.
Yes.
What?
Yes. Well, coming to the point, John Lewis advert's coming out soon.
OK. Hollywood A-lister Tom Holland has swapped his Spider-Man suit to become Percy Pig this Christmas. Now, that's part of the Marks & Spencer bumper festive campaign, and in the ad, Percy comes to life after a swing of the wand by a fairy played by another well-known British actress, Dawn French. The pair then roam an M&S food hall store, with the company showing a variety of new products, including a triple chocolate panettone and a golden blonde Christmas pudding. M&S launched its campaign on the same day as rival John Lewis is about to release its new festive advert. Welcome back. 7:15. This is the Great British Breakfast. Now, the UK's migrant crisis intensified this week after a migrant drowned attempting to cross the English Channel. Figures now show that more than 20,000 migrants have attempted the journey already this year alone. This is more than double the total for the whole of 2020.
Well, here to give us some insight, really, into the crisis is Dr. Alan Mendoza, co-founder and executive director of the Henry Jackson Society. Good morning to you. Nearly 800 people tried to cross the Channel and enter the UK in one day. I mean, what is driving people to attempt this perilous journey?
Well, I think there is a acknowledgement amongst many migrants coming that they'd rather be in the UK rather than France. Now, you can draw your own conclusions why that might be, but clearly word has seeped back that the UK is a better end destination. Possibly the benefits are better, possibly your chance of getting on in life are better than in France. And, people hear that, and that's why they are willing to risk life and limb and pay vast sums to criminal gangs to try and get them into this country.
Vast sums. The UK's just paid up to France tens of millions of pounds to try and, in some way, ameliorate this. Will that make any difference?
Well, it's supposed to make a lot of difference. The money was only released once the French promised that they would be picking up, I think the original plea was for 3 out of 4 boats. The French minister responsible said he'd get 100% success rate if the money was released. So we really have to investigate now how good the French system is, now that they're being motivated by vast sums of money to actually pick people up. And I suspect we'll be able to see the results or not in the next couple of weeks, because we'll be able to identify whether they have in fact been successful in stopping the flow, or whether they are just going to take our money and allow the same flow to come across as before.
I mean, a lot of this is motivated and sort of facilitated by criminal gangs. We've talked about this, and we've talked about this for so long. We talked about it earlier on, didn't we? I mean, they're profiting from this misery. As I said, they're motivating these people to do this. How big is the role played by people smugglers, and why are we not actually going for them?
Well, the role of people smugglers is absolutely central. I mean, people cannot just suddenly build a boat over in France and decide, oh, we're going to come over. They don't obviously have money to buy boats necessarily. So what they tend to do is entrust those people who are offering them passage across, who will be obviously criminal gangs. So without the criminal gangs, you wouldn't have this issue in any way, shape or form in the magnitude that's happening right now. And yes, you're quite right. Clearly, the focus of what should be happening is not the migrants themselves, but actually the people who are driving this trade in human flesh. And that's what it is. Let's not kid ourselves here. And that is who we would expect and hope the French authorities would be cracking down on. It cannot be that difficult to work out who is behind this particular trade in humans, and they should be arresting them and putting them in prison for a long time.
3 people died last week. 1 person died yesterday. A really horrible question, but is there a sense that there is an acceptable level of deaths in the Channel before something really does have to change? Because the frustration, and we're seeing it on the email system here, every time we do a story on the migrants crossing the Channel, it lights up. People are so frustrated at what just seems to be a complete lack of any action.
Yeah, it is rather mystifying. And look, of course, there is a horror when anyone dies from making a journey like this. But the reality is it's a very, very dangerous journey. If you're on a rickety boat, you can capsize, if you're, children can obviously very easily fall prey to the channel. This is not an easy journey. So I suppose the question is constantly being asked, why is more not being done to stop this perilous journey from being undertaken? And, one of the reasons we Brexited was to have control of our border. Well, 20,000 people in this first full year of Brexit is not a good look for that sort of idea of controlling the border. And we've got to really understand that there are a lot of people, particularly in Kent, who are deeply concerned about what's happening. I mean, a point was made by the MP for Dover yesterday. Dover has a population of 30,000 people. 20,000 people have crossed the Channel this year. And it's not over yet. We've still got 2 months to go. So you can understand people's concerns on this subject. Obviously, the government is concerned. It's now time the French did their job and stopped this trade in human misery from continuing.
OK, well, thanks so much for joining us. Dr. Alan Mendoza, co-founder and executive director of the Henry Jackson Society. Thank you.
Don't forget GBViews at gbnews.uk. Thanks to Richard, who's emailed in and said, your admiration of that chicken prompts me to issue a challenge. He says, for children in need, you could present the news dressed as a big strutting rooster.
That's easy, I'm
No.
sure. No?
No,
Really?
absolutely
Children
not.
in need?
Strutting rooster? No.
You just need a...
Yeah, thank you.
Come on, we'll work on him. Coming up, who was it? Richard.
Yeah.
Well done, Richard.
Yeah, well
Coming
done,
up, Tory MP Owen Paterson's avoided his 30-day Commons suspension, but is this a victory for MPs? Or is it a loss for politician standards? We'll look into that.
Oh, there we
more
are.
after.
They're hoisted by our own petard within seconds of having a...
Detailed weather. I'm
That was nearly as bad as
Listen, I'm thinking... Oh, really? I'm thinking about how we're going to dress you up, yes. See you in a minute.
Oh, well, again.
Hello, good morning. It's another cold one out there for many of us. A touch of frost in places this morning, but plenty of sunshine where we see the lowest temperatures. Still some coastal showers about today, but with high pressure starting to build in from the west, fewer showers and isobars a little bit less packed together, so less windy as well. All in all, a brighter and drier day for many, certainly more sunshine around for much of central and eastern parts of the UK. Still, though, some showers feeding into the east of England on this brisk cold north wind and West Wales as well as Cornwall. 1 or 2 there for Scotland at first, but they die away. And then for the vast majority, actually, it's simply a sunny day. Certainly inland, long spells of sunshine and temperatures of 8 to 11 Celsius, feeling cold in the wind, but out of the wind in the sunshine. Pleasant enough if you wrap up warm. Into the evening, the showers continue for a time in the east, but even these die away later. And then overnight, lengthy clear spells across much of England and Wales, whilst thicker cloud starts to arrive into parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, with some light outbreaks of rain for the likes of Orkney, Caithness, Sutherland, West Highlands. That'll keep temperatures up in the north, but where we've got the clear skies further south, as low as -3 Celsius on the thermometer first thing Friday. Despite the chill, though, that's where the best of the sunshine will be through the morning, and clear blue skies continue into the afternoon for southern parts of England, South Wales as well. Thicker cloud tends to topple in elsewhere, and again some light outbreaks of rain for parts of the Northwest Highlands, central Scotland, the Northern Isles. But all in all, temperatures doing okay tomorrow, a little bit less chilly compared to recent days. It turns more unsettled in the north this weekend with some wet weather and some very strong winds Saturday night for northern and western Scotland. It also turns a bit milder.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for the political correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is the political correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
Hi, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
And we're hosting a show right here on GB News, 9:30am till 12pm, every single weekday, called To The Point.
We're going to be talking about all the big issues that matter to you at home in Britain.
Absolutely, whether it's holding politicians to account, discussing what's taking place in the Channel, banging on about law and order, we're not afraid to do the absolute lot of it.
Yes, and if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we'll be saying it.
Make sure you're here 9:30am till 12pm, every single weekday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
Welcome back. You're watching The Great British Breakfast. It is 25 minutes past 7.
It is. Conservative Owen Paterson has avoided a 30-day Commons suspension after an 11th-hour intervention by senior Tory MPs. Mr Paterson was found by a standards watchdog to have misused his ministerial position to benefit two companies he worked for. But some senior Tory MPs argued that the probe into his conduct had been unfair and instead voted to overhaul the standards system. However, the vote was met with cries of shame from the opposition.
The ayes to the right, 250. The noes to the left, 232.
Well, let's hear to get the thoughts of Peter Edwards, former editor of the news website Labour List. And one of the shouts there in the Commons, Peter, was, what have you done to this place? What have they done to that place?
Well, I think they've cheapened the institution of Parliament, and one has to be clear that sometimes there's confected outrage in the House of Commons. Yesterday, there was real outrage because the government has shifted the goalposts for party political reasons for a former cabinet minister who took money from private company to lobby the government.
Peter, Sir Keir Starmer, his assessment was strong. Boris Johnson's government, he said, is wallowing in sleaze.
Well, I think that's a completely fair assessment. But I'd also, you're used to left and the right having a go at each other in the media and in the Commons. But also overnight, it's actually Conservative MPs saying how uncomfortable they are with this and how it looks bad and smells bad for the public. And remember, we're talking about £100,000 a year on top of the 80 grand a year MP salary Owen Paterson took.
Peter, well, a lot of people emailing us, actually, and pointing out that even if you face a criminal charge, you're allowed to put your point of view. There should be a defence able to be put, and that is what is lacking in this system. Is that a fair assessment?
Only to a certain extent. The way the parallel does not work, and of course this is not a criminal process, is first of all, Owen Paterson did draw on witnesses. They weren't giving verbal testimony, but as I understand it, there's 17 witnesses that he attaches a lot of weight to, gave some written testimony. And the panel, which is independent, it's not party political, said speaking to those witnesses wouldn't have changed the outcome. The other thing, of course, the government knows is that if you change the process while one of your friends is in the process, that corrodes public trust. And the old adage about shifting the goalposts applies here. The Tories have been in power for 11 years, and not before one of their friends was subject to this scrutiny and a quote-unquote trial did they think it was time to change it.
I mean, Owen Paterson has had a very sad, a very difficult year, hasn't he? His family. Do you think that made some more disposed to sort of ease his punishment on compassionate grounds?
Yes, I think so. And I think everyone should recognise that he's been through a very distressing family tragedy that will live with his family long after the media has moved on to something else. So I think we all feel for Owen Paterson and his late wife in these circumstances. It is very grim. But one of your viewers drew a parallel with court cases that don't involve politicians, that might involve you or I, ordinary folk in the courts. And if someone goes through a court case and suffers a tragedy, there is hopefully empathy. That wouldn't change the outcome, and it wouldn't change the way the evidence is handled. And that ultimately was the job of MPs yesterday. It was to look at the evidence and the sanction. And while it might sound very cold, they do have to be dispassionate about the facts before them because of the family tragedy that Owen Paterson suffered.
Yeah.
Let's take the party politics away from this just for a moment. As Steve has just emailed us and said it's about time MPs realise they work for us. Privately enriching themselves while being paid by the public purse is a disgrace. And it's a plague on all the houses here, isn't it?
Well, I'm not sure it is a plague on all the houses. I think it undermines public trust. Personally, I would ban all second jobs from the House of Commons, because I think £80,000 is enough for anyone to live on. And I think being an MP is a big job. Constituencies average 75 to 100,000 residents that they're there to represent. Of course, there are one or two MPs of all parties, left and right, who do things like they're ex-doctors working in their hospital, they're ex-soldiers, still part of the reserves. But I think long-term paid work, especially in the private sector, should be banned, because why does someone need £100,000 a year on top of their MP's salary?
Well, the argument is, of course, that if you want to attract good people, you've got to pay a sensible wage. And let's face it, those salaries are big salaries, but they could get much more working elsewhere, as we're seeing. There's a balance here, and the argument is that pay them more, they won't have to do other work, they will concentrate on their constituents and the job at hand. And it is an important job.
It's an important job, but I think that argument, and I know that's not your argument, you're just conveying it, but it's nonsense, because first of all, the average salary around the UK is nowhere near 80 grand. And bear in mind, I'm in London, but the average salary in Glasgow, Govan or Hartlepool is nowhere near 50 grand. I mean, one has to be realistic. £80,000 is a lot of money. And then secondly, if someone's deterred from helping their country because of money, then maybe they're not the right person to help their country.
OK.
Do you know, Peter, it's really good. We haven't spoken to you before, have we? No.
I'd love to come back.
Well,
we'd love you back.
Love you back. It's good to talk to you. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Peter, thank you. Skies across Britain will dazzle over the next few days as the country celebrates Diwali and Bonfire Night as well. This year, many large public displays, though, are cancelled due to the pandemic, which means some are heading to private displays where the risk of injury or accident is higher. It's not just you, though, who's more likely to be affected, but your pets as well. Animal welfare charity RSPCA is pushing for stricter firework regulations.
Well, let's work out what the rules are. Our East Midlands reporter Will Hollis joins us now. And just to explain who can, who can't buy fireworks, what's allowed, where can you have them, give us it all.
Good morning. Yes, exactly as you say, millions of people are going to be celebrating events like Diwali today and Bonfire Night tomorrow. Most people, while they love to set off a few fireworks in their back garden, most people would go to a large display. For the second year running, COVID means that a lot of those displays are cancelled. The one that usually happens about a mile away from where I am in Nottingham is the City Council reluctantly, as they say, cancelled it. That's because it's in a large open park where you can't control the numbers. Around 40,000 people would usually go to that. A lot of fireworks displays are still going on when you can control those numbers. Some of those are even asking for COVID passports so that you can get in. But what does that mean? It means that more and more people are likely to host a bonfire party or a Diwali party in their back garden. What they'll do is they'll go down to what they call a registered seller, who are allowed to sell at this particular time of year. Places like the supermarket, the local news agents, and then they'll be hosting their bonfire nights in their own gardens. Who can buy the fireworks? Well, you have to be over 18. You can't even carry fireworks out in a public place if you're under the age of 18. And so more and more people will be having these displays in the garden. That means that there's more of a risk. Now, the risk is that based on NHS data between 2018 and 2019, 2,000 people had to go to the emergency services, the A&E, with a firework-related incident. Interestingly, 9 out of 10 of those cases were males, and around the millennials age was the majority of them. I think it was 1/3 of people there in that A&E department were younger people. It's also worth remembering that you can have an on-the-spot fine or even an unlimited fine if you set fireworks off in a public place. So if you are going to do it, it's worth doing it in your own back garden.
Now, the real worry is pet owners, as he was saying there. The RSPCA has been quite specific as to what it wants.
Yeah, so while fireworks annoy a lot of people enjoy them, but they do also annoy a lot of people, particularly because of the times that people set them off. It's worth remembering that you can let fireworks off all the way throughout the year, but it's the time that matters. It's up until 12 o'clock for Bonfire Night. For New Year's Eve and Diwali, it's up until 1 o'clock. Many people are upset about the way that fireworks are let off, particularly because of how it affects animals. Now, this year, as well as most years, the RSPCA is running a campaign saying that we need tighter regulations. As I said, you can let fireworks off at any date in the year, but they want to tighten that, make it particularly celebratory events like Bonfire Night, like Diwali, like New Year's Eve. They say that will highly reduce the impact that it has on pets, as well as people who are affected by fireworks, vulnerable people, as I mentioned. What they also want is they want to lower the level of noise that fireworks produce. Right now, you can legally buy fireworks that produce 120 decibels worth of noise. The RSPCA says that's the equivalent of a jumbo jet setting off. They want that lowered to 90 decibels, which is about the equivalent of a loud car door slamming. And what I will say is I've got a Department for Rural Affairs and Agriculture spokesperson, the people that are responding to this call for tighter restrictions on fireworks. It's an offence under the Animal Welfare Act 2006 to cause an animal unnecessary suffering. This applies to fireworks. Users of fireworks need to use them responsibly and be aware of animals close by. And those found guilty of causing animals unnecessary suffering can face up to 5 years imprisonment. It is well worth checking the rules again if you are hosting a private bonfire or Diwali event in your garden, and the government recommends checking out gov.uk or ROSPA, the Royal Society for the Prevention of Accidents, if you are going to do any of those sorts of things with fireworks.
Will, a comprehensive answer.
I was just about a very comprehensive
Thank you very
overview,
much.
I would say.
Will, thank you. Will
Thank
Hollis.
you very, very much indeed. Coming up, Dr. Christian Dunn joins us again for our daily rundown of COP26. Got lots of questions for him, where today we discuss the pledge of 190 world leaders and organisations to end coal power use by 2050 and whether coal-reliant Australia and China will ever pledge the same. That's after this.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for Political Correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is Political Correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
Hi, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
And we're hosting a show right here on GB News, 9:30am till 12pm, every single weekday, called To The Point.
We're going to be talking about all the big issues that matter to you at home in Britain.
Absolutely, whether it's holding politicians to account, discussing what's taking place in the Channel, banging on about law and order, we're not afraid to do the absolute lot of it.
Yes, and if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we'll be saying it.
Make sure you're here 9:30am till 12pm, every single weekday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
Thank you to those tweeting and messaging in. Someone's just said, are you sure you two aren't married?
A married couple.
No,
correct.
why not?
Oh, right, thank you. Good morning, welcome back, by the way. The COP26 climate conference made a major breakthrough with over 190 nations and organisations pledging to quit coal power by 2050. Well, coal is regarded to be the single biggest contributor to climate change, as the fossil fuel is considered the dirtiest source of energy. UK Business and Energy Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng signalled that the end of coal is in sight. However, with some of the world's biggest coal-dependent countries, including Australia, India, China and the US, refusing to sign up to the pledge, is it too early to actually make this call?
OK, Dr Christian Dunn, Senior Lecturer in Natural Sciences for Bangor University. There he is. Oh, I was right about the hair. Obviously, every day...
I combed it specially for you today.
Really? Yeah, you should have put your finger in that plug afterwards. Now, let's just talk about Kwasi Kwarteng there saying, you know, the end of coal is in sight. Is it, when you've got Australia, China and India all saying, no, we intend to go on, certainly in the short term, as we are, talk of a new coal mine being excavated even in this country, even now? I mean, he's being a bit economical with something.
Well, yeah. We're starting to see the end of coal. I think that would be the best way to say it. We are a long way to go, but we are at the beginning of the end, maybe. Let's put it that way. Some of the countries which aren't signing up for it are obviously the ones that use it the most and rely on it the most. And for them to shift away from using coal to renewables and, you know, dare we talk about it, nuclear, then that's going to take a huge step change. But for the amount of countries that are agreeing to it, and countries like Poland as well. So Poland, you know, a country that uses a lot of coal, but also has plans to, you know, to expand to its growing economy. For them to say that they're not going to be using coal as well, that is a step forward. But yes, let's be cautiously optimistic. And we are hopefully at the beginning, very beginning of what could be the end for coal.
Yeah, sound like Boris Johnson now, Christian. Cautiously optimistic. The carbon emissions, this was interesting. The rebound post-COVID is set to be bigger than expected. Just tell us more about that.
Yeah, indeed. So obviously during the pandemic, when lots of countries went into lockdown, their economies went into lockdown, we saw a tremendous dip in the amounts of greenhouse gas emissions which were being released because there was less business being done, less things being made, less people driving around. And so we saw a dip. And we knew, obviously, that when we came out of lockdown, or countries started to come out of lockdown, that was going to start to increase again as businesses started to do business again. But the rate that it has gone up has surprised people. And so, yes, at the present time, we will be hitting record levels in 2022, which highlights the importance of doing something about our greenhouse gas emissions, however, wherever we can.
Right, now, you do your daily slot on this programme, and lots of people know that you're coming, and so here we go. Interesting, by the way, that you had Tim Davie, the BBC Director General, and other broadcasters yesterday saying they will devote more time to climate change issues, and that they say that the science of climate change is no longer politically controversial, and climate skeptics are on the sidelines.
This is, I was actually going to bring that up today because I found that really interesting. And talking to my colleagues and people, campaigners and the sort of kind of people I talk to, so many of them I don't think really understand that. Something I haven't understood until coming onto this show and realizing the strength of feeling and the amount of feeling that is not, but I don't like using the word, but isn't on board with the fact that the climate is changing and it is man-made. And I think a lot of scientists like myself and campaigners, we should be coming more on these sorts of shows and talking to more of your viewers, because I think a lot of what we are doing is preaching to the converted, and that is not right. If we want to see the changes which need to be made, there is no point me going and spending my time doing public engagement with people who kind of already understand what I'm talking about and already on board. I should be spending more of my time, and we as a scientific community should be spending more of our time trying to convince people and show people and just explain to them the importance of doing something about this, and the people which are still reluctant or still hesitant about this. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all. If you're hesitant, fine, but it's my job and my community's job to help you understand that this is a serious issue and we should do something about it. And for people like the head of the BBC to say, oh, it's not really an issue anymore, it's not a contentious issue, that's wrong.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Well, on this, I've got someone's tweeted me and said it'd be interesting to hear your views on previous claims on climate. I'm sorry, forgive the time on this, but in the 1960s, we were told that oil would be gone in 10 years. In the 1970s, we were told another ice age is coming in 10 years. In the 1980s, we were told acid rain will destroy all crops in 10 years. In the 1990s, we were told the ozone layer will be destroyed in 10 years. In 2000s, the ice caps will be gone in 10 years. None happened, but it all resulted in more taxes.
Yeah, well, one thing I would say is that some of those issues, you mentioned the level of the ozone, that was an issue which was serious, and then that took worldwide action for something to happen, and we did well with that issue. We actually, with it still a problem, but nothing like it used to be, because the whole world took action on that. And I think actually that should be held as a success story rather than oh, look what happens. You scare us with this and then nothing happens. That is actually a success story. And when it comes to the others, when it comes to, we're going to be reaching peak oil and all that kind of stuff years ago, decades ago. Yes. Well, yeah, I understand that then there might be some reluctance when people say, look what is happening. However, I would say that we are modeling things, and so we're never going to be 100% right without a doubt. But as scientific understanding grows, as technologies get better, as things like AI get better, we can be more and more sure of what we are saying. And also, let's face it, we were warned about melting ice caps and things like that, and we started to do things, and hopefully we're starting to make the world a better place and a cleaner, healthier, more biodiverse place. That's what we want to get to. And in a way, even if you don't believe that it's man-made, this climate change and all that kind of stuff, if you don't believe that at all, I don't understand why you wouldn't still want to do something to make the planet better, less pollution, whatever that is, whether that's plastic pollution or whether that's less emissions going into the atmosphere. Surely you'd still want to do that anyway. So if we've got our figures wrong in the past, the scientific community got the figures wrong in the past, and that's classed as scaremongering, then perhaps sometimes we do need to be scared to take action, like the ozone issue.
Yeah, OK, which was cut after refrigerants were cut down on, weren't they? Very quickly, I've had Ivor's just emailed me, says, warn the doctor that there's a snake behind him. What is that over your left shoulder?
Yeah, that it is a cobra. Yeah, it's not real. Well, it is real, but it's a specimen that was sent to us from a former student. But we have a natural history museum here in Bramble, but in Bangor University. But they didn't want this specimen because unfortunately it's a little bit old and a little bit tatty. So it's now here in my office. So yeah.
That's why I sit here next to Kirsty, because I'm a bit old and a bit tatty. It works. And it beats a bookcase anyway. It's always good to see you. Dr. Kristen Dunn, thanks very much.
Thank you, Christian. You're brilliant. Now, former England cricketer Gary Ballance has admitted to using a racial slur against Yorkshire teammate Azim Rafiq during their time at Headingley. In a lengthy statement, Ballance said, "It has been reported that I used a racial slur and, as I told the independent inquiry, I accept that I did so and I regret doing so." Rafiq, in September 2020, gave an interview in which he claimed institutional racism at Yorkshire County Cricket Club left him close to taking his own life, prompting an investigation by the club.
Well, let's talk now to Monty Panesar, former England cricketer. Monty, great to see you. Thank you for joining us. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Yeah, thank you for having me on the show.
I just wonder how you felt when you saw this story, first of all. Did it make you think, oh, have we not dealt with this? Or have you thought it never really went away?
Well, I think Yorkshire kind of haven't, dealt with this, properly. And I think there was insignificant concern about the allegations that Azim Rafiq, made towards bullying at Yorkshire, the racial allegations that he's also made as well. And when you've seen the repercussions from some of the sponsors, withdrawing with immediate effect, and also we've seen the government put pressure to actually give us some transparency towards, these allegations. I think then they've kind of released a statement of, Gary Ballance saying that, yeah, he did use the P word, but it was under sort of the bracket of banter, which actually probably doesn't sit comfortable with a lot of people, because if you're in an organization and you say any racial language, you'll get the sack immediately. So this is something that needs to be addressed, and in cricket, people need to know what's a racist language and what is banter language.
Morning, Monty. The thing is, when you read the report, there was some some allegations of racism going the other way as well. Actually, wasn't there, towards Ballance?
Well, look, if I've got an Australian and we call him Aussie, we're New Zealander, we call him Kiwi, and a Zimbabwean, we call him Zimbo. That's not racist language. That's just, sort of abbreviations that you have in cricket. But if you call someone the P word, or other sort of racist language, that is completely, in the term of racism, I would say. And there needs to be a clear distinction, and in cricket, we've seen with the PCA last year, they are working hard towards creating online modules, giving more education towards, the academy members. But we don't really have a charitable organisation like we have with Kick It Out.
Monty, the problem here, it is racism. It is the other way. It's exactly the same. And actually, from the report, it is a derogatory racist term that as a Zimbabwean, I'm not going to say what Rafiq said, but it went both ways. And this is what I can't quite understand.
Well, I tell you, this is such a complex, subject that we're going through right now, because we've got the likes of Misbah Ahmed, who's a British Asian, and he said that he's endorsing that this was all under the term of banter, using the P word. And that's why it's such a complicated issue that people, amongst the ECB, once they get this full findings of the report, and I think we're hearing that Colin Greaves is actually going to take over as the chairman and the full report will be published, then we'll get an honest account of actually, what really happened. Were there two friends who were really close with each other? And that's what makes this situation such a complicated and a complex one.
Monty, money talks. We've now got Yorkshire Tea pulling out of sponsorship of Yorkshire County Cricket Club, and that's the only way this goes, is financially that hit will hurt so much they'll have to do something about it.
I suppose it's going to be, it's an external pressure. We've seen, like you said, all the sponsors leaving, and possibly a test match could be postponed next year in 2022 when they, was supposed to be playing against New Zealand. There's a prospects of the Ashes test in 2023 against Australia. So that's where I think, possibly could be an option that an ECB may take. And they may even diminish their funds, their funding, if they feel that Yorkshire County Cricket Club have brought the game into disrepute.
OK, Monty Panesar, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us this morning.
Nice to see you. Now, coming up, are you worried about this upcoming Christmas? Guidance is available to those who are experiencing festive anxiety. Well, what is it? We'll tell you in just a moment.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for the political correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is the political correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
Hi, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
And we're hosting a show right here on GB News, 9:30am till 12pm, every single weekday. Call to the point.
We're going to be talking about all the big issues that matter to you at home in Britain.
Absolutely, whether it's holding politicians to account, discussing what's taking place in the channel, banging on about law and order, we're not afraid to do the absolute lot of it.
Yes, and if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we'll be saying it.
Make sure you're here 9:30am till 12pm, every single weekday, right here on GB News, for To The Point.
Welcome back, 5 minutes to 8. Now, whilst Christmas is usually a time of joy, only 15% of UK adults feel excited about this year's festivities. That's according to new research from the British Association for Counselling and Psychotherapy. The report found around 4 in 10 adults worried about not being able to afford presents. 17% felt stressed or anxious, whilst many feel pressure to make everyone enjoy it. Well, BACP accredited therapists are available to talk through the advice they're giving to help those who are concerned get through the festive period.
OK, let's get more on this. We're now joined by Philip Karahassan, a BACP accredited therapist and registered counsellor. Good morning to you. Thanks for joining us, Philip.
Good morning.
So this is very real. I mean, what more can you tell us about the research and your findings?
Well, we're finding more and more people have an expectation to be happy, to be content, and to make sure that not only they're having a good time, but everyone else is having a good time, which doesn't actually necessarily work, because in order for us to have a good time, and everyone else to too, we need to make sure that we're looking after ourselves. And that's something from the findings, that we're finding people have, their expectations are that everything should be fantastic and fine when it might not be.
Well, and those expectations are bigger this year because, of course, last year was a washout for so many people that perhaps they're expecting even more this year when it won't be justified.
Yes, indeed. And the thing is that we feel we have to make up for the missed Christmas, the COVID Christmas of last year. So we have even higher expectations, and more people are going to be coming over. Borders have opened up, therefore more people coming into, or we're going to other people's houses too, and we're expecting to have this magical Christmas where everything works out. And we need to make sure that our expectations are not such that we're overexerting ourselves, and our expectations mean that we end up missing out on a Christmas festivities which we can A, afford, and B, enjoy.
And we've got to think about, as well, those people who already maybe dread Christmas, those who are on their own or, widowed or whatever in the last few years. I guess that, sadly, the COVID situation, the pandemic has exacerbated that even more.
Yes, indeed. And like I just said, it's people trying to make up for that Christmas. I've heard it time and time again, how people are saying that they need to make sure this Christmas is even bigger and better, which means also more financial implications too. So credit cards are coming out. And this time of year is a magical time. I'm not saying it's not. But if we have these expectations and all of a sudden we're drinking more, spending more people around, it only stands to reason that we're going to be looking after ourselves less. And the Christmas, or the anti-Christmas we had last year, I'd hate for people to be overexerting themselves during this time.
Well, Philip, have a lovely Christmas. Philip Carr,
Thank you.
Good to talk to you. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Yeah.
We're staying with the theme.
Yes, John Lewis has released...
Not to add to the pressure too much.
Yeah, it's just released its Christmas advert a week earlier than usual, by the way, after a surge in online searches for festive products. The advert follows the classic John Lewis formula of showcasing two unusual friends sharing Christmas.
Let's have a look at this year's advert, shall we? Here, I haven't changed my mind.
No, I haven't changed my mind at all.
A lot of you messaging. Earlier I said it's political correctness gone mad. I stand by that. A lot of you agreeing. Some are saying... Well, actually, someone just said, I wonder what they would have said if the alien was a person of colour. The only white face in that advert is the alien. A lot of you saying it doesn't in any way describe a traditional British Christmas. The word wokes has appeared.
Yeah.
Keep those views coming.
Yeah.
I suspect it'll be discussed all day.
It will be.
We'll see you next week.
It's the briefing with Tom Harwood, live from COP26 See you next week.
I see.
Hello, good morning. It's another cold one out there for many of us. A touch of frost in places this morning, but plenty of sunshine where we see the lowest temperatures. Still some coastal showers about today, but with high pressure starting to build in from the west, fewer showers and isobars a little bit less packed together, so less windy as well. All in all, a brighter and drier day for many, certainly more sunshine around for much of central and eastern parts of the UK. Still, though, some showers feeding into the east of England on this brisk, cold north wind and West Wales, as well as